Second step, right? Second step, got a plan, right? Here's where you're trying to go. Here's where you are. How do you get there, right? Now you're going to likely, unless you've got a lot of money, you're going to need your investments to actually work for you, meaning you're going to need a rate of return on your assets in between now and arrival. Need not even just arrival, because people are living so much longer these days. It's no longer a function of managing to retirement, that you actually need to manage through retirement, right? If you retire at 65, you're gonna live for another 30 years. Oh, yeah. It's not like you ring the bell at 65 and you're done. That money's got to last for another 30 years. Right. So you got to manage that money, right? From here to there. The gap, the thing that makes that happen is how much is in your bucket, in your investments. Now those investments need to be managed a certain way in order for them to arrive safely, right? So if you put everything in cash and you get a 0 or a 0.5% rate of return, almost never can somebody get there unless they had a substantial amount of money already. Most people need their money to work for them. So this is where people make a mistake. This is where advisors might make mistakes, where they invest that money in a way that isn't appropriate for what it is they're trying to do. Meaning, if you are trying to get from here to there and you need a 6% rate of return and you're leaving that money in cash, it's never going to happen. If you're investing that money very aggressively, you're putting into individual companies in high ratios where you have risk of getting it wrong and you expose yourself to too much market exposure, you very well might not get there. This is the part that's fascinating to people. There is actually a right way to manage money, And it's not my opinion. There's actually something called a fiduciary standard. It's based off of Nobel Prize winning research from an economist named Harry Markowitz, who looked back over history and looked at all the different parts of the market, because there's not just one market. There's all these different parts of these markets. They're called asset classes. And what he found is that they all do different things under different economic conditions, even under the same economic conditions. They do different things. And what he found was that if you own specific amounts of each of those, then you would do better, generally massively better, than someone who didn't. That became the standard. Think about that kind of like a compass heading, right? So theoretically perfect portfolio. Of course, the problem with that, it always rings in my head when I say it, is it's based completely off of historical performance. And the old disclaimer of past performance is not an indicator of future returns, that old disclaimer applies here. So what we do is we use an independent research group that looks at that historical information, that compass heading, if you will, and adjust according to what's actually going on today. So if some part of the market looks worse, they'll own less of it. Some part looks better, they'll own more of it. But there still has to be an understanding of that historical compass heading. You can't just, there's no pilot, to continue that analogy, there's no pilot that's great enough to turn off the instrumentation, put on a blindfold and say, I can get you to Hawaii, don't worry about it, right? You need that compass heading. You can adjust based on real world conditions to adjust and maybe even get more defensive or go more of this or less of that. But you need that compass heading. You need that discipline. And we see so many times where that discipline isn't used, and you literally have the equation of somebody trying to fly to Hawaii, but literally aiming that plane toward Mexico, because there is no discipline. There's no process. There's no standard in terms of how those assets are invested. And if you get that wrong, you will not, very hard to end up where you're intending to go, because you're either taking more risk than you think you are, or you're taking less risk, or either way, you're not giving yourself the best opportunity to get there.